Done. We can start.
Start.
A very warm good morning to everyone who have joined us today. I welcome you all to the 5th and 9th lecture of Kartavyam, the constitutional law lecture series organized by the Campus Law Center, Faculty of Law, University of Delhi in collaboration with 20 other universities. An academic initiative that seeks to deepen constitutional consciousness among students, scholars, and practitioners of law. This lecture series brings together reputed jurists, academicians, and public intellectuals to reflect on the living spirit of the Constitution of India. Today, we have gathered for the fifth lecture of Kartavyam, titled For Understanding of Kartavya Jurisprudence, an emerging intellectual and moral framework that places duty as well as rights at the center of our Constitution. Kartavya jurisprudence draws deeply from India's civilizational ethos, reflecting the timeless principle of dharma and collective responsibility. This school of thought compels us to reimagine citizenship not as a status defined solely by entitlement and privileges, but as a sacred trust that calls for active responsibility and ethical engagement in the life of the nation. Before we proceed, I would like to call upon our new professor in charge, Professor Gunjan Gupta ma'am, to set the ambience for today's event by delivering the welcome address. We also congratulate ma'am and seek her blessings. We also have with us our patron in charge, our patron, Dr. Alka Chawla ma'am. We welcome ma'am as well.
Thank you, Chaitanya, for congratulating me. Thank you so much. A very good morning to all, respected dignitaries, esteemed guests, dear colleagues and friends. It is indeed a great privilege and honor on behalf of Campus Law Center to welcome you all to this meaningful gathering. Today, as we have united in spirit and purpose, we embark upon a journey that seeks to reflect upon a reimage and renew our commitment to the values enshrined in our Constitution. Your presence here adds immense strength to this noble endeavor, and I extend my heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for joining us on this significant occasion. The opening invocation of our Constitution, "We, the people of India," is far more than a preamble. It is a clarion call that reminds us of our shared responsibility in sculpting and destiny of our great republic. As India proudly strides into its 78th year of independence, there arises an urgent and profound need to rekindle the spirit of constitutional duty, not as a burden imposed upon us, but as the foundation of our collective aspiration to shape the future of our nation. This is a time for reflection, but also for action. It is a time to reimagine how we interpret our Constitution and how we breathe life into its values. Our duties, interwoven with our rights, form the bedrock of our democracy. Let us now view these duties as mere words on parchment, but as living principles. Principles that have the power to transform the jurisprudence and inspire a constitutionalism that is not only aspirational, but truly transformative. Though this initiative, we seek to move beyond traditional textual interpretations, we aim to spark new dimensions in the constitutional thought, to dissect and understand the intricate harmony between our rights and duties, and to catalyze fresh vitality in the practice of the constitutional law. Previously on this journey of Kartavyam, we had the privilege of welcoming the eminent voices of Indian public discourse, including stalwarts like Honorable Vice President Shri Jagdeep Dhankar, Honorable Mr. Justice P. Narasimha, Attorney General of India Mr. R. Venkat Ramani, Senior Advocate C.S. Vaidyanathan, Shri Sanjeev Sanyal, and other dignitaries joining together to underline the significance of this constitutional lecture law series. For today's lecture, we have the distinct pleasure of welcoming our honorable guest, Professor Dr. Amarpal Singh, a luminary in legal academia, currently serving as the Vice Chancellor of Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National Law University, Lucknow. Senior advocate Jose P. Verghese, a distinguished jurist and academic leader, former founding Vice Chancellor of Hidayatullah National Law University, Raipur, and senior advocate at the Supreme Court of India. Professor Shaila Davre, an accomplished scholar and dedicated educator, currently serving as the head of the postgraduate department in law at ILS Law College, Pune. Once again, I really warmly welcome you all, and I look forward to the rich exchange of ideas that this series will undoubtedly inspire. Thank you so much, and I really welcome you all. Over to Chaitanya.
We are honored to have with us a remarkable scholar, a visionary leader, and the esteemed Vice Chancellor of Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National Law University, Lucknow, Professor Dr. Amarpal Singh. Professor Singh's academic journey is nothing short of inspiring. A true scholar at heart, he holds multiple advanced degrees, including MA in English, an LLM in Constitutional Law, an LLM in Legal Theory from prestigious European Academy of Legal Theory, and a PhD in Law from Rajasthan University. Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Actually, I've got a glitch on my screen.
Yeah, it is. This glitch is there everywhere. Yeah, now it's okay. Go ahead,
Okay.
Chaitanya.
His profound expertise spans constitutional law, environmental law, and legal philosophy. With over 4 decades of experience in the legal academia, Professor Singh has held key academic and administrative positions, including serving as the Dean of the University School of Law and Legal Studies at Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, Delhi. He has also headed departments, served as Chief Proctor at National Law University, Jodhpur, and contributed significantly to the growth of Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National Law University. I'd like to invite Professor Dr. Amarpal Singh Sir to deliver his share of insights and knowledge for the people present here with us. Please, sir, begin.
Thank you, Chaitanya. Thank you so much. I also put on record my thanks to Professor Gunjan Gupta. Respected Professor Shala Davare, the chairman for this session and head of the department, ILS Law College, Pune. Professor Jose P. Verghese, the founding Vice Chancellor of HNLU and a senior advocate of the Supreme Court of India. Professor Gunjan Gupta, Dr. Seema Singh, other esteemed colleagues who have joined for the session, and student friends. This is fifth lecture in the series of that Kartvayam lectures that Delhi University Law Faculty has started. The lecture that I am the subject that I'm trying to talk about is fundamental duties as I understand it from the perspective of Bhagavad Gita and the Constitution. So I'm trying to interface Bhagavad Gita and Constitution, and obviously from the point of view of India's cultural backdrop, if I put it that way. What exactly I'm trying to do is to first put in some very general ideas whereby I try to clarify my position to explain as to how Bhagavad Gita talks about duties, and then move on to the Constitution, and finally ending with my general or concluding observations. Let me begin. Good or bad, I have not been able to share my PPT, but nevertheless, I prepared this PPT for the purpose of presenting my ideas in a concrete format. But let me start. The idea of duty, as I understand and appreciate it, is more of a matter of appreciation rather than understanding. Let me explain this. Generally speaking, appreciation and understanding are known to be synonymous expressions, but they are not basically. Appreciation, sometimes you appreciate a certain things without understanding it. Sometimes you understand something without appreciating it. Appreciation primarily is uh, valuing something positively, recognizing its worth or quality, whereas the idea of understanding is a mechanical grasping of meaning. So therefore, I probably cannot explain it in terms of understanding the idea, but if you make an effort to appreciate the ideas that I'm trying to present, probably this shall make a bit of difference. Duty, primarily understood, is supposed to be an action that is required of someone, primarily as a moral obligation and as a part of job or a position. This expression position is important. I'll come back to that. But duty is something that is done with a sense of commitment and dedication. Due, that is to be done. We in Hindi call it kartavya, which means something that should be done. Karaniya, that should be done. That's how we look at duty. Now, looking at the, as I said, that it's a moral obligation as a part of the job or a position. What do I mean by this position? This is important. Friends, let me explain that the position I take, the standpoint that I take or I occupy determines my viewpoint. Therefore, uh, the position that I take determines my duty as well. So, if somebody's standpoint or the position is different, the duty would be defined in a different manner altogether. The idea of duty, as I tried to explain it, the kartavya, the karaniya, is to be understood from the Indian cultural context. And I connect it with the constitutional paradigm. Article 1 of the Indian Constitution would start with the expression India, that is Bharat. There is a lot of confusion associated with this expression. But let me explain that the idea India, that is Bharat, is something to be understood from this perspective. Bharat is not uh, basically a geographical expression comprising of certain territories. India, for that purpose, is a geographical expression, which simply means or refers to a community that resides in the territories abutting the river Indus. This was probably how it was understood, and then India, later on evolved into a different dynamic. But Bharat is a cultural expression that means, if I put it etymologically, the expression bha means bha abha, light, truth. And the expression Rath means engaged. So Bharat, culturally explained, etymologically explained, in cultural context would mean or would refer to a community that is consistently engaged in search of truth or light, or truth, light, bha abha. This is how we look at that. This actually emerges from that Upanishadic, expression, asato ma sadgamay, tamaso ma jyotirgamay. So this is a community. Bharat is a community, a cultural expression for that purpose, that is consistently, persistently engaged in search of truth and light. This is how the duty is to be understood from the perspective of this community. Now, coming back to Bhagavad Gita, put it in a very simplified format. Gita is considered as the simplified gist of all that is Indian viewpoint. Obviously, it stands from certain standpoint, but it is a simplified version or a gist of what we generally call Indian standpoint or viewpoint in terms of our goals of our collective individual existence. The samasti, as we call it. From that perspective, Bhagavad Gita represents the typical Indian standpoints. Now, this Bhagavad Gita consists of three main philosophies: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. Without getting into the details, the Karma Yoga is the has been given the most exalted position in Bhagavad Gita. Let me start by quoting a few shloks that I will do from chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, which talks about the idea of Karma Yoga as such. One shlok, that is fifth shlok of third chapter, talks about it like this: Nahi kastik kshanamapi jatu tishtatya akarmakrit karyate hyavasah karmah sarvah prakriti jaigudi. I shall try to do a rough translation of this expression, which says that any small thing at any given point of time under the sun, nahi kaschik kshanamapi jatu, nothing under the sun, even for a smallest point, tisthatya akarmakrit, is never stand still, is not doing anything. It is always engaged in doing something. And it keeps on working as if the naturally induced forces force it to work hard, to work. So, karyate hyavasah karma sarvah prakriti jaigunai, as if the natural forces are forcing it to work. That way it is, working all the time, every single thing under the sun. And then the kind of a yagya chakra that Bhagavad Gita talks about, that all of us are involved in a big, yagya chakra, doing our duty. Actually, the expression yagya itself is a form of duty that involves a commitment and a sacred element that I need to perform. So, Shlok 9 puts it like this. I shall explain it. There are 4 or 5 slokas that I shall be quoting for the purpose of summarizing the Bhagavad Gita on the theory of karma. Yagyarthat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartha karma konteya mukta sangha samacha. This is how Lord Krishna would put it, that anything that you do beyond this yagya chakra, that is beyond duty, performance of your duty, that is something that becomes a binding karma. That means that becomes a bandhankari karma. Otherwise, everything is a, kind of a, which basically, performing your duty, doing your karma is primarily an ennobling experience. It actually, what should I say, gives it absolves us from all kinds of, problems that way. Tadarth karma konte mukta sangha samachara. Therefore, Lord Krishna invokes that we should do our karma without, any consideration of its results, as he puts it in chapter 2, karmanyevadhikarasya mafali sukadachan. That's a different kind of context altogether. The third, which is shlok number 22 from chapter 3 itself, Lord Krishna puts it, name parthasya kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana. Parth is obviously the name of Arjun, and he says that for me, under the, in entire these 3 loks, in 3 lokon mein, there is nothing that is, नमे पार्थास्य कर्तव्यम त्रिशु लोकेषु किंचन, तीनों लोकों में मेरे लिए कुछ भी करने की जरूरत नहीं है. This how he is trying to do. Nevertheless, he says, nan vapta mavaptavyam vartayeva cha karmani. Nevertheless, every single moment I am engaging myself in performing my duty. Though there is nothing to be done in these 3 loks for me to be done, but nevertheless, every single moment I keep on performing my task, every single moment. And why do he does that? This he explains in Shlok 21, where he says, यद्यदाचरति श्रेष्ठः तत्तद्देवेतरो जनः yat pramanam sakurte lokastadanuvartate. He says that when those who stand in the capacity of a leader, and all of us in some or the other point of time actually stand in the capacity of a leader. So one who stand, because the expression used here is shrest, which can be defined in variety of ways, but he says yadyada charati shrestha, as and when a person who stands in the capacity of a leader performs his duty, he does not perform his duty for the purpose of performing his duty. In fact, by performing his duty, yat pramanam sakurte lokas tadanuvartate. By performance of his duty, he creates a praman that is basically emulated by the rest of the flock. This is the philosophy of Loka Sangraha, as Dr. Agrawal, interprets it. So, by my duty, I'll go on to explain this with reference to Dr. Radhakrishnan as well. But let me summarize this: that by performing my duty, I am creating an example, and this example is performed by the rest of the flock. It becomes a precedent for others to follow. So everybody is bound to perform something. If I just try to summarize it once again, and by almost by natural forces, he is forced to perform his duty. And even the Lord, though he is not supposed to do anything under the sun, but nevertheless, every moment he is also involving himself in performance of his duty. And this is because it creates a precedent for the rest of the flock to follow. Now, the idea is that the performance of duty is the backbone of entire existence. This is what he puts in shlok number 5 when he says, Naschit nahi kaschit shramapi jatu tistatya karmakrit. The idea of duty is the backbone of entire existence. It is my duty that determines my character. And that's how this, develops into what I call the karma. In fact, I do my duty, therefore I am. My existence is justified by performance of my duty. In fact, duty is the sum total of my karma in a community. And Dr. Radhakrishnan explains it in very categorical expression. He says, duties are the opportunities offered to a man to sink his separate self and grow into the world. Duties actually are not simply the performance of my duty. It's an opportunity whereby I sink, my own self, separate self, and grow into the world. Duty basically is the connecting link of the community. Duty makes it possible to live life in a community. This kind of an enunciation of looked at from the cultural standpoint that I tried to explain, India, that is Bharat, actually is this India, that is Bharat, is a community which is held together by a sense of duty determined by its position in life. In fact, if we look at the expression dharma, actually dharma subsumes all of these things, but actually that is not the context here. So I shall concentrate on my idea of duty alone, which is the summum bonum of my existence. This is how Dr. Radhakrishnan tries to explain the idea of duty. Friends, if we look at the constitution now, moving towards the constitution, I should be finishing it in next 15-20 minutes. When we started the experiment of our constitution, launched this constitutional framework, the political legal environment at that point of time and the available institutional framework was basically designed in the by the Western thinking, of course, and was part of the the British system, which was primarily a project of cultural imperialism for the purpose of perpetuating their own cultural imperialism. They created these institutions. At that point of time, probably for the purpose of avoiding disruptions that we the people of India decided to constitute our system on the existing lines without disrupting anything. Probably the thinking was that slowly the time shall enable us to infuse and incorporate indigenous thinking into our institutional mechanism. That was probably the thinking. So the idea of duty, which otherwise is, part of the cultural pattern of the system, was not part of Indian constitution when we started our, constitutional process. So institutionally speaking, if I put it that way, a duty bound system was converted into a right conscious system. PV Kane puts it actually, and he criticized this constitutional mechanism on this particular basis. There are other things also he talks about, but one of the primary criticism that he raises against the constitution during early 1950s was that this constitution has converted a duty bound community into a right conscious system. This is how, these were the problems that Professor Kane talked about. Now, as we generally understand it, if we look at, say, the Western perspective, the duties are not part of the Western thinking, and they are not written into the constitutions. There has not been a tradition. There are some socialist constitutions across the globe, like Sri Lanka, maybe China, which has inserted a chapter on the concept of duty. Uh, the understanding in Indian context, probably as I was trying to explain, was that since constitution represents an integrated scheme, and therefore the state could always incorporate duties as part of that scheme, probably later on, or probably the courts could also incorporate these duties by way of an interpretation, because we already had this kind of a classification of Hofeld's right duty paradigm, in which the idea was that, well, my right is your duty and your duty is my right, and if you do not perform your duty, my right would get violated, and therefore the courts would find a remedy for that. That was the kind of an understanding and the rationale that probably led the framers of the constitution at that point of time not to incorporate the duty element into the constitution. In 1970s, as a community, we decided, good or bad at that point of time, Sorensen committee came in, and this became part of 42nd constitutional amendment, whereby we inserted article 51A with chapter 4A in the constitution, wherein we incorporated 10 duties to begin with, from article 51A clause A to article 51A clause J. And later on, article 51A clause K was added by 86th constitutional amendment, which becomes the 11th duty. But we need to understand and appreciate that these duties are not enforceable element. They are not self-executory provisions of the Constitution. Right? We may appreciate it as law students very, in a simple sense, that they are not self-executory in the sense. So, say for example, if fundamental rights are self-executory, if they are violated, it may be challenged in a court of law, and therefore the court will find a remedy for that. In that sense of the term, the duties are not self executory, in the sense that for the purpose of executing them, the state will have to take an action, maybe drafting a legislation for the purpose of implementing it, and thereby making them executory. So they are not self executory. Nevertheless, as we know it, that they certainly help in shaping and influencing the provisions of the constitution and its interpretation. In fact, we had a huge debate on the relationship of fundamental rights and directive principle state policy, and this debate was actually used for this kind of a policy that we had, this was used for fundamental duties as well. I talk about a case which is not very well known, came from a very distant Mufassal area of the state of Madhya Pradesh. Very interesting case, that there was a proposed marriage happening, and the the marriage party had gone to the place of the bride. So there was some dispute between the two sides on the payment to be made to the dancing girl, and this dispute became so big, it the dispute got evolved into a fight, and the bridegroom's party came back without marrying the girl. This is how it happened. Later on, they made a claim in a court of law that they had spent a lot of money, which should be, compensated by the side of the bride. That was the kind of argument made in the court of law. In this context, if we recall, there is a one of the fundamental duties is to respect womanhood. Now, court actually invoked this principle in its interpretation and observed that because you have not performed your duty properly in respecting the womanhood, therefore you cannot claim your right. That is the kind of interpretation that the court gave at that point of time in this judgment, which is not a very well known judgment, but comes from Madhya Pradesh High Court. Now, having said that, let me look back quickly at the kind of duties that we have before I come back to the concluding observations that I make for the purpose of summarizing my the issues in this presentation. So it, as I was talking about, talks about some 10 and 11 duties now, because one of it was added by way of 86th Amendment. So abiding by the Constitution and respecting its ideals, respecting the national flag and national anthem, cherishing and following the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle for freedom, upholding and protecting the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of India, defending the country and rendering national services when called upon to do so, promoting harmony and a spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, and regional or sectional diversities, and as one of the principles I was quoting, duty I was quoting, renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women, which was invoked in this dancing girl case, and to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. It also talked about protecting and improving the natural environment, developing the scientific temper, humanism, and spirit of inquiry, safeguarding public property and absorbing violence, striving towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement, and of course, to provide opportunities for education by the parent or the guardians to the child or ward between the age of 6 to 14 years. These are some of the duties that we incorporate in our constitution. Now, my point is, with reference to these duties and the way I had tried to talk about duty in our ancient system, that fundamental duties represent something typically Indian. Now, for the purpose of explaining this, what I mean by typically Indian, I shall tell you a small story. And this story I had taken from Discovery of India by Pandit Nehru, in which he talks about it. So there was this, the story goes something like this, that there was a king who had gone to the banks of a river to perform the duties, to perform shraddh or tarpan as we call it. for the purpose of paying respect to his ancestors who have already passed away. So paying respect to them, performing the Shraddha ceremony or Tarpan ceremony, he has gone to the banks of a river. There was a Purohit along with him who was performing the essential duties. So when he chanted certain mantras and said that now the ancestors may come and receive the tarpan, three hands came up. Three hands came up. Now the expectation of the Purohit was that one hand, who is the father of this king, would come up. So he once again chanted certain mantra, and then he said that one who is the father of this king should come and receive the tarpan. Nevertheless, three hands came up. So the king also got confused, and the Purohit also got confused, and in that confusion, he left the ceremony in between, and in confusion and fury, he started moving towards his palace. And here you have a old lady who tried to stop him on his way towards the palace. So he tried to remove that lady from his side, and the lady said that, look, I have something to explain that three hands story that you have confronted while performing the Shraddha ceremony. So he got curious, and the old lady opened her hand, in which there was a money, and this was a money that was there in the neck, around the neck of the king as well. So the old lady tried to explain that, look at your the money that you are wearing in your neck, the same money I have in my hands as well. Now the king got curious, and the story now goes into the background. So there was a very cruel king who actually did not care for anybody. He was a very cruel king. uh, Now when you have a cruel king, there shall always be rebels in the area as well. So there was a group of rebels as well. Now, this king has a friend who would do business in the far flung areas and bring wealth to the king. So once this fellow has gone, to a far off place and was returning with lot of wealth, and somehow it so happened that the ship got sunk in the sea. Now, the king thought that the ship must have sunk because of some mistake of this person who was his friend earlier. So he started, saying that I have lost a lot of wealth and all that. So somebody suggested that, well, doesn't matter that businessman has gone, has died, has perished in that accident. Doesn't matter. He has left a lot of money, so you can confiscate his property and make good the loss that you have suffered because of his mistake, that ship got sunk. So this businessman is survived by a wife and a daughter, and they, somebody runs and tells this wife and daughter of this businessman that the king's men would now, confiscate your property. So they run out and they go into the forest for the purpose of saving their life, where they are hungry and thirsty and don't know what to do, under a tremendous confusion, nothing to help them. So they listen to the cries of a human voice is there in that, wilderness of that forest. They hear the cries of a human cries, so to say. So they just look around and see that there is a human being who appears to have been beaten black and blue and has been hung over a tree. So they go there. How can we help you? The person who appears to be on the verge of death tells these the mother and daughter duo that I will tell you how you can help me, provided you marry your girl to me. It's a long story, but then when they ask as how, what happens, so he says that you dig the earth under a certain tree, and you will find three monies buried under there, and you can take this, go to a particular city, and then this girl would have a child from a boy. You will give him one money, and then leave that child near a certain river. uh, the story gets repeated, and then the child is born, and they leave that child around that river. A king comes and picks up that child who doesn't have child on his own. So this child grows into this king. Now the story is this, that he has three fathers to say. One was to whom his mother was married. The second was the biological father. Third was the king who raised him up. So the question was, who was his father? Now, this is a story that one can apply to the idea of duty, that you may have picked up these ideas from anywhere, but they typically, look like Indian, the pattern and context in Indian culture, deeply embodied in Indian culture. So, none of these fundamental duties, as we understand them, we can ignore if we care for anything that is Indian. Fundamental duties actually are the goalposts of our collective existence, and they represent the ideals that have been nurtured and nourished by our forefathers for thousands of years, and they continue to inspire generations even today. And the question that I try to articulate and try to answer as well in terms of my concluding observations is that, is it possible, can we incorporate these ideas and ideals in our life process, in the socio-economic life process of the collectivity, in individual or collective life process that we have? So, my understanding and my conclusion is that, as I started by saying, that India, that is Bharat, is a cultural expression, and its glory shall be proportionate to the efforts we make in incorporating these ideals into our lives. They may be individual or collective life, but to the extent we can incorporate these ideals and the duties as we have in our constitution, representative of the ideals that this India, that is Bharat, represents, that will determine the kind of glory that India is able to achieve in the days to come. There are a lot of issues that one can keep on talking about. I cut the story short for the purpose of summarizing the things. I you know I stop here with my sincere gratitude and thanks on record once again for the organizers for inviting me and permitting me to present my views. Over to you, Chaitanya. If you are hearing me, I shall be extremely
Yes, sir.
happy if I could answer certain questions that are articulated by the colleagues present in this discussion. Over to you, Chaitanya.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your insightful words with us, with all of us who are present here, for so beautifully connecting the timeless wisdom of the slokas with the guiding principles of our constitution, and for highlighting the purpose and significance of our duties through the lens of Kartavya jurisprudence. All the questions that are there would be taken in the at the end of the session. Would that be all right, sir? Okay, sir. So moving on, we are graced by Professor Shaila Davre chairing this session, an accomplished scholar, dedicated researcher, and an inspiring leader in the field of legal studies. A sought-after speaker and research guide at Savitribai Phule, Pune University, Professor Davre holds a BSL from Symbiosis Law School, an LLM from Savitribai Phule, Pune University, and a PhD from Symbiosis International University. Professor Davre has led significant research on criminal justice delays, AI in courts, and investigation loopholes in collaboration with CID Pune. Her published work covers diverse areas from personal laws and religious practices to feminism in law, and she has also contributed as an editor to major legal texts including Mulla's Law of Insolvency and selected works of S.P. Sathe. I'd like to invite our chair of the session, Professor Shaila Davre, to share with us her views about the significance of today's session.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to be here on this important lecture series of Kartavyam Jurisprudence. Professor Yogesh Singh, Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi, Dr. Alka Chawla, Dr. Seema Singh, and Dr. Gunjan, I congratulate you for this brilliant initiative. It is almost like a revolution in understanding our constitution in the light of the Indian knowledge system. Just now, we heard Professor Amar Pal Singh. He has given a wonderful and a brilliant insight into duties. Right? So as we gather here today, I think it is crucial that we take a moment to reflect not only on the rights which are enshrined in our constitution, but equally on the responsibilities that come with them. Hoffelden, one of the most influential American jurists, has given a brilliant analysis of concept of right. Now, one of his key contribution is that duty is also important and an essential concept of right, apart from privileges, immunities, etc. So this clearly established that effective implementation of rights depends upon better understanding of duties. However, what is important is that much before Hofleden, the Indian traditional knowledge has already established that kartavya, duties, are forerunner for a better life. So to revive the whole concept of duty, this concept of kartavyam becomes a milestone in this area. And I think now time has come where we see duty as a legal force rather than just as a moral obligation. In one of the judgments, the Apex Court, way back in 1974, has remarked that through civil procedure code, fundamental duties can also be legally enforced. Our Indian knowledge system has always emphasized that whatever is present in nature, including plants, human beings, rivers, etc., all have a right to exist in a dignified way. Therefore, our ancestors have always strived to protect rivers, plants, and keep them intact from exploitation and destruction by human beings. For that, our ancestors, much before, have recognized the right of nature and correspondent duties on human beings to protect the nature. So if you go back to Prithvi Sukta, there are more than 50 shlokas that are dedicated to sustainable development and environment protection. Now, our courts are also adopting the same approach. So recently in Salim versus State of Uttarakhand, the courts have recognized the right of a river. The court stated that rivers are living entities and are legal persons with rights and human beings and correspondent duties. So as Dr. Professor Amarpal just now said, that right is the backbone of our existence, right? So I think these lecture series on Kartavyam are going to give us a new perspective to understand our constitution in a broader perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your insightful words with all of us, illuminating the spirit of Kartavya jurisprudence. We are privileged to have with us our next speaker, a distinguished senior advocate, visionary academician, and a leading figure in legal education and research, Professor Dr. Jose P. Verghese. Professor Jose holds an LLM and PhD from Delhi University. His scholarly work and professional service have been deeply intertwined. He served as Vice Chairman Judicial at the Central Administrative Tribunal, Principal Bench, New Delhi. and was a special invitee to the Center State Relations Reforms Committee chaired by the late Professor Madhava Menon, focusing on the fifth and sixth schedules of the Constitution. Professor Jose has held pivotal readership roles at several India's foremost law schools, including NLSIU Bangalore, NLU Jodhpur, NUJS Kolkata, Jain University Bangalore, and notably as the founding Vice Chancellor of Hidayatullah National Law University, Raipur. His tenure at these institutions has left a lasting imprint on legal education and institutional development. Professor Dr. Joseph's distinguished association with the field of law spans over 3 decades, with remarkable contributions to the advancement of legal scholarships and curriculum reforms. He has been the chairman of various committees, academic councils, governing bodies, and finance committees of different universities. And as a senior advocate of Supreme Court of India, he has argued in numerous constitutional bench cases before the Honorable Supreme Court, as well as the High Courts of Delhi, Kochi, Bangalore, and Ranchi, earning wide respect for his advocacy. I now would like to invite Professor Dr. Jose P. Verghese to address this gathering with his experience and insights.
Thank you, Madam, for inviting me to give this lecture. I don't know all this qualification which you mentioned, I deserve it or not. But I would straight away, once again, thanking all the organizers for inviting me into this. The lecture which I am going to give is something very different in the sense it has gone into some 20 articles which I had already published on the subject through the academia and international forum, which I am in the process of publishing it together. My previous publication is on Arthashastra of Kautilya, which is already published a year back and being printed, and it will be distributed very soon by Garden City University of Bangalore. Let me straight away start with reducing a lot of introductions. Sorry, because I don't know many of you who are here. I am a fresher in this area. The topic allotted to me by Madam Seema Singh is Rita, Natural Law, and Kartvaya Jurisprudence. For the concept of Rita, I have gone through my own writings where the Vedic philosophy, which is already published, I have taken just 4 of the sages and to show that how the Rita is related to nature. Let me start. I have circulated my article to all of you. I hope you have got it. Madam Seema, you have circulated it to the participants? She is still not there. Anyway, let me start with it. I don't know
Not to all of them, sir, because it was not possible because many entrants are very new. So earlier I circulated your paper with other participants which were present.
Okay. I'll try to do it in a summary form because without text, it's a long article. It's about almost 30 pages. So I'll only take certain areas which are more important and crucial to the building a jurisprudence, a Kartvaya jurisprudence. Now, Kartvaya jurisprudence is an emerging idea in the realm of Indian knowledge system in law. In fact, it is part of an effort to locate an obligation-based legal system in ancient India. You must remember that all our legal system is right-based system, and it is implanted into India by the British. And I consider all the ills we are is because of that system. We forgot that we had a better system available from ancient India onward, which I call obligation-based. And that is, I would like to show the Kartvaya jurisprudence is nothing but a search for an obligation-based legal system. It is a little difficult to replace it by I have written so many places, but it is yet to come out in the form of a book, and we will try to bring it out, the idea how to replace the existing system. It's a yeoman's job. It is not very easy because we are all so imbibed into this received legal system. Even our constitution fathers, there was a conflict whether we should abandon the earlier one. But, all of them were, most of them were educated in that Western ideas, and it was very difficult for them to grasp what exactly is available in Indian literature. But I would not dare to be, an authority on any of these, but my studies are confined to ancient Indian jurisprudence. Ancient, for me, it covers the literature, Vedas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads, and perhaps some other pre-Buddhist literature. And also, I would like to include the 4th century BC to be, I will put a full stop with that. Because the subsequent knowledge, part of the knowledge system, has not completely absorbed what is available, according to me, in the ancient India, which I am now trying to say. So therefore, there may be many questions pertaining to what I am trying to say. But I would like you not to refer it to the subsequent one because I don't know much about it. The area is so vast. There are 120 pages literature quoted on the Indian literature on the law and jurisprudence by Kane. It is impossible for a single mind to go through all that. So therefore, I confined to an area which is called ancient Indian and started studying as far as possible from the original. I normally avoid whatever the Western, as far as possible, the Western translations. But if I want to rely on a translation, I compare into 3 or 4 translations, then try to find out because I am familiar with Sanskrit, and my wife is also a PhD in Sanskrit, so she helps me a lot to understand what is the content of this text. So I read mostly the original instead of what is written by others. Now, etymologically, jurisprudence is coming from the Latin word. Interestingly, I am also familiar with the Latin, Greek, and the Hebrew, other languages. Latin word jus, juris they call it, nominative and genitive. That is the way it is in grammar schools we understand like that. Jus is not just a right. Use is very difficult to understand in the Indian languages, and very close to that term is adhikar in Sanskrit. Adhikar comes from adhikra. So that adhikar is not only right, it also includes a power in the person who holds the adhikar. it also includes obligation. Who holds that, the holder of adhikar. So therefore, it is not only just a right, it is right, obligation, and power. So that is use. Therefore, jurisprudence needs to be understood as the legal or philosophical basis to determine right, obligation, or power. But we have been, Western philosophy forgot the other two and started emphasizing only on the right. Jurisprudence is, when you go to court, 42 years I have been practicing in the court. The first thing they ask me is, what is your right? And you have to explain where is this right coming from, which statute it has written. But I have fought with the judges, literally. Said, sir, it's not only the right. Every right created by a statute has an implied obligation on the other side. Without that, right cannot exist. But some people used to listen, some people used to say, no, you are crazy. Whatever it is, I still practice and I try to impose my idea that, it is the court is not to enforce only the right. It is also to impose obligation. And I have seen, for example, I am an advocate of child rights. Why child right? Child cannot hold a right. What we have to enforce is the obligation of the others, the parents, the society, the state. You cannot enforce the rights of the child unless you enforce the obligations of the other. Similarly, the environmental rights. What is it? Environment doesn't need any right. It is the corresponding obligation on the other. But our act, etc., doesn't explain this. They don't understand because they are imbibed in the right-based system. Now I understand all the constitutionally protected classes, like women, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, children. You cannot have statute explaining the rights. You need to rewrite those statutes. What are the obligations on the other side? Only then it will be Indian. Otherwise, it will remain Western. That is my opinion. So therefore, the jurisprudence needs to be understood as a legal or philosophical basis or behavior in a given society. Kartavya jurisprudence, therefore, would confine to the obligation part of the jurisprudence. That's why he said Kartavya jurisprudence. And we should not talk about the rights at all if you really want to put your ideas on obligation based. So Kartavya jurisprudence has to be understood as obligation based jurisprudence. Again, our inquiry is restricted to ancient Indian jurisprudence, what is available till 4th century BC. The coverage, therefore, would be Vedic and post-Vedic, but confined to pre-Buddhist and perhaps up to 4th century BC. Kartavya jurisprudence is a study of obligation-based legal system in contrast to a right-based system under the heavy burden of which India is now struggling to come out, as it is of late perceived as the root cause of all evils in the administration of justice in India. For example, our criminal law is totally Western. It was introduced into India at a time even when the Western idea of criminal law was not developed. There the basic idea was the might is right. And both the accused and the one who want to claim the right, both have to fight each other and decide. That was the time the criminal law existed in England and which was introduced here by Macaulay. They said, okay, we have to govern India because we lost America. And we have to, if you want to rule India, you have to impose a legal system based on our principles and also the English language. These two things we were always enslaved. So therefore, in contrast to the right-based system, so it's belonging to Vedas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads. And the most important, and in my study, I have come across 4 basic principles in the ancient Indian jurisprudence. These are, number 1, Rita Satya Dharma doctrine. Rita Satya Dharma. Second, Nama Rupa Karma. And third, doctrine of Purusha Prakriti. And fourth is Pragya, the theory of knowledge. Many of them call it Gyan. Gyan is not sufficient. It is wisdom. Pragya is to be translated as into wisdom. Now, as the topic for the present lecture concerned, namely Rita, natural law, and Kartvayam jurisprudence, what is proposed first is to look into relationship of nature with the concept of Rita. Then with the concept of Purusha. And thereafter, look into how the concept is understood in relation to law governance in ancient India, where the predominant ideas were that every citizen will have to show respect to the nature, Prakriti, live with nature, and never attempt to challenge nature. So the understanding of nature was the basis. And how it is related to Rita, I'll begin to start my lecture. And this relationship between nature and Rita is brought out in four Akamarshana, Hiranyagarbha, Prajabatya, Narayana, and Asuri. 4 stages of, out of this, I will take only 2, though the article covers all 4. I will go into them very quickly. I don't know how much time I will have. So
Sir, next 20 to 30 minutes, sir.
Okay. So the first one is the concept of nature associated with Rita is given by Akamarshana. Ritam cha satyam cha abhidattad tavasyo adyajada. That both concept of Rita and Satyam is coming due to tapas and beget out of that. Tapas is the cosmic fervor, was the creative principle from its cosmic order, which is called Rita, and truth, Satya, was born. So therefore, when this 190 sukta of Rigveda is one of the last sukta. It has got only 3 clauses. Ritam cha satyam cha abhidatta tapasso adhyajayata. So that is the basis. So the basis is given in the first part, and the second part, which has got only 3 verses in that, he said, Surya Chandrama Sodhata Yadha Purvam Kalpayata Diva Cha Prithvim Cha Andarikshamayo Matho Swaha. So it relates to Prakriti in the 3rd verse. So how is the Prakriti and Rita related? Is in the entire Sukta, which has got only 3. And therefore, the close relation with the Prakriti, and whatever is in the Prakriti related to concept of Rita is given in concise form, which I have quoted in the beginning of the article itself, all the three verses. Rita, the cosmic order, on the other hand, denotes the principle that underlies that reality. The principle that governs would cover the entire universe from the time it began to manifest. It is the expression or order that operates with the realm of Satya. Rita is the universal and cosmic principle that holds together the Satya that exists. Rita is therefore that which goes with the forth in a natural and orderly manner. It is the natural laws of the principle and ideals that govern the reality or existence. Rita enables the natural order to continue without break. It ensures the proper functioning of nature that provides for humans through rain, plants, light, fire, arable land, food, and it follows the cycle of nature. Therefore, that close relation of nature, because now we have to understand, the Western concept of natural law. Unless we understand what is the concept of nature, and how is it related to this very sustaining principle of the universe, the Rita, and how are they related? You won't understand what is nature. I will explain how the Western philosophy has explained nature and how the Indian concept has explained nature. Now, I'll skip most of this part. I'll come to the last part of page 3. The orderliness in the nature, which Rigveda called the Rita, the universal order, seems to have made the sages to visualize that it is this orderliness that controls the season, the day and night, the dawn and the sunset, countable days, weeks, months, and years. The authors call it zodiac. Some authors call it zodiac. Whatever be it, the idea of universal order, Rita, is well founded in Rigveda. It represents the cosmic order, the totality of the nature, including human being. In the positive sense, Rita refers to universal order. That is the only truth, and that is what sustains everything in the universe. The opposite of Rita is Anrita. You must have heard often, written even the emblem before the Supreme Court is written Satyameva Jayate. Satyameva Jayate is part of that Upanishadic quotation. It starts Satyameva Jayate na Anrita. That will be the complete way of putting it. Because the opposite of Satya is not Asatya. It is Anrita. Because Satya and Rita are so closely related. So when you say Satyameva Jayate, we are only speaking part of it. Because the rest of it we leave. Na Anrita part we are leaving. Therefore, our understanding of Satya and Rita becomes faulty. So as such, everything in the universe has an inbuilt quality not to cause any destruction, Anrita. Rather, everything continues to exist in conformity with the perceived universal order. The idea of Rita is thus well founded in Rigveda. It represents totality of nature, including human beings. This universal order is perceived, especially its rhythmic movement, and the same is described as Rita. Now I will leave what the Hiranya Garbha Prajabatya dealing with the same idea in a subsequent chapter, 10th book, 121st Sutta. That also I will leave for the time being. I will only summarize what he says. It is even in the page 5. According to the said Rigvedic sage, sun is visualized as the Hiranyagarbha, the golden germ, to mean it is fire, born out of the vast waters spread all over the universe, contained in the gem, and thereafter produced as one single breath of God, Devanam. According to him, it is the fire that constitutes the solar existence, which is the generating principle of the universe, and the fire itself was at first contained in water, establishing, like his predecessors did, the water is the primitive substance that exists. Now you will see water is the first principle of jurisprudence, according to one of the Greek thinkers, and which is in the fourth, fifth century of the Greek philosopher Thales. Now I recollect the name Thales. But the idea that the water was the basic was there from time immemorial, from the time of Rigveda. And now maybe the Greek philosophers had access to Indian philosophy or Indian literature through the Persian Empire. Maybe it is borrowed, but we don't know. I wanted to make a special study how much of Greek philosophy has borrowed from Indian literature, but that project is still pending. Now, I would skip most of the other part, and I'll come to sage Narayana, because there both Rita, Purusha, and Prakriti, all three are related. And where Narayana's doctrine is in Rigveda, 10th book, but 90th Sukta. They call it Purusha Sukta. Purusha Sukta is the most misunderstood, because that the clause 12 says that it is the basis of forecast, which is totally wrong. I feel it. I will tell you what is Purusha Sukta actually contains. I will take 5-10 minutes just on that. Then you will understand Purusha Sukta is not the basis of the forecast, though it mentions the relationship of nature is also best expressed in the doctrine of Purusha Prakriti, which is the second important doctrine underlying Kartvaya jurisprudence. It is said Narayana believed to belong to 1000 BC, whose contribution to Vedic philosophy is also very substantive. In verse 1 to 16 of 90th Sukta of the 10th book of Rigveda are traditionally attributed to him, begins with the word Sahasra Shirse. It is also known as Purusha Sukta, in which mythological reference to dismembering of cosmic giants, Purusha, is alluded to. It is stated that this sukta is one of the latest hymns of Rigveda, as one can find references to 3 Vedas and 16 distinct elements of nature, Shod Dasha, because of which this hymn is called, for its importance of not only its philosophical content, but also its natural content. Now, the philosophical part, Narayana conceives Purusha to be the first cause of universe. It is from Purusha that everything is originated. The 1/4 of the original Purusha is actually the first cause of the universe. It is from that the visible sun, moon, earth, water, fire, etc., were born. It is from this visible sun that we now derive the light, heat, and it is only represented its original solar body. From this 3/4, which went up, produced Viraj, the luminous body which is sun, the moon, the planet, etc. Such is the greatness, and the Purusha is as vast as the world of past, present, and future. it is only the 1/3 of it which is below. 2/3 is gone up to heaven. And it is also related to the theory of Nama Rupa Karma, which I have explained. To understand the whole theory, the doctrine, you have to look into my own article on Vedic philosophy. There I have explained everything in detail. But I will not go that much here. So the explaining that it is the 3/4 that went, 2/4 that went up, the 1/4 that went down is expressed in the form of a sacrifice. This is followed by the allegory of dismemberment that happened due to sacrifice with Purusha as the offering, out of which a mixture of curd and butter, this allegory, was produced, and then he made those animals over whom Vayu presides, those that are wild and those that are tame. When they immolated Purusha, they divided him into many portions like his mind, eye, mouth, breath, feet, arms, thighs, etc. In subsequent verses, he describes this apportionment. One is the moon from his mind, sun from his eye, Agni from his mouth, Vayu from the breath, mid-air from Antariksham, or from his navel, sky from his head, earth from his feet, and the regions from Bhumirdish from his ear. I avoided the forecast, which is also supposed to have originated from the mouth, arm, thigh, and feet. So it is 4 out of those 16 which is taken out and said that this is the basis of caste system. Because it is the dismembering of the sacrificial victim into 16. And we all, out of focus, emphasize the 4 and come to a wrong conclusion. Sorry to say that. So I'm not an expert, but this is what I read in the Purusha Sukta when you read it as a whole. By way of conclusion, the sage declares the following: by means of sacrifice, the gods accomplished their sacrifice. They were the earliest ordinances. The mighty one attained the height of heaven. There, where the sadhyas, the gods of old, are living. It is very interesting. What sage Narayana said was only a corollary to what sage Dirghatama said, because this final word is verbatim repeated in the first book as well as in the 10th book. And the 10th book of the Purusha Sukta is only corollary. If you want to understand the Purusha Sukta well, you must also understand the first book, 164th Sukta. Only then you can understand the corollary, first understanding what is given in the first part. Anyway, I am not going into it. That part I have explained in the Vedic philosophy article of mine. Now let me skip and find, what is the relation of Prakriti in Upanishads. Here I am coming to the Upanishad of Shvedasvetara. Then you have Asuri. And finally, Pippalada. That is in Prashnopanishad. There are 4 of them, but I will not go all of them, but I will now only confine to one of them so that, the rest again, it's available in my article in the Vedic Foundations of Sankhya, because the Prakriti Purusha is the basic notion of Sankhya. So in that article, which is also a long article, I have explained what is the Vedic foundation. Now, what I would like to read only the certain portion, and I skip most of them. And it is it is Asuri who explains that the self was indeed Brahman in the beginning. It knew only I, as I am Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi, Vismiti, is said by Asuri. Therefore, it became all. And whoever among the gods knew it, all became that. And the same with the sages and so on. And to this day, whoever in the like manner knew it is I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmiti, becomes all this. Even the God cannot prevail against him, for he becomes their self. The following verse is very important as it relates to nature, Prakriti. It is followed by the verse 16, where the sage is asserting that the self is actually the world of all things. Sarvesham Bhutanam Loka, consisting of 6 different entities. I will not go into it. Again, it is a question of detail. It will take more time, and I don't want to take much of your time. But again, he says there are only 3 worlds. Trayo Loka Eva Eta Eva. The word is the earth, Vagvayam Loka. The mind is the sky, Manondadiksha Loka. And the vital force is heaven, Prano Sav Loka. So the Prakriti, basis of Prakriti is these three words coming out of self. Now again, I skip. I have already reached page 15. The cosmic Purusha and 16th part. That is what the Prashnopanishad sage Piplada was dealing with. And again, I will not go into the detail because it will take very long time. Now, parting with this word, sage to his disciples said, after explaining to Piplada in the Prashnopanishad, his disciples say, it is very interesting to note, this is all what I know about the Supreme Brahman. And there is nothing above this. Upon this, the disciple praised him, saying, You are our Father, Pita, who has taken us beyond all our ignorance. So the very basis of the 3 worlds is coming out of the self. Now the concept of nature in Shastra. Coming to one of the Upaveda, I understand Shastra means here Arth Shastra is one of the Upaveda. It is given by introduction to Brihaspati Sutra, available in edited by F.Y. Thomas. Most of the Brihaspati Sutra and Shukra Nidhi, etc. are all missing. Only some of the editions are available. One of the Brihaspati Sutra is translated by F.Y. Thomas, that is available in print. So coming to one of the Upavedas, namely the Shastra, where one can find elaborate discussion of concepts. There are 2 full chapters on Prakriti in Shastra, as it relates to law and governance in ancient India, where the predominant ideas were that every citizen will have to show respect to nature and learn how to live with nature. Prakriti is nature personified and is the sum total of nature, the material world, the entire visible universe. Or the entire visible universe as it is conceived as the Shastra, it says Prakriti Sambat. representing the visible world, and that expresses itself as the source of all prosperity and tranquility. It is the nature in its fullness and that expresses itself. Rajasambat is said to operate as the dominant attribute of all other attributes of Prakriti Sampat, even though all of them would operate like several limbs functioning together in a body. The entire Prakriti Sampat, according to Shastra, is consisting of 12 Raja Prakriti and 60 Dravya Prakriti. Thus, in all, it consists of 72 attributes, and the whole of it is called Prakriti Sampat. And I have quoted where it is taken from. So, this idea of Prakriti is not just the nature what the Western people understood. It is something little more than. It is the entire universe, the entire manifestation. It is nature personified. So it is, if you want to understand, you have to understand as the concept has originated from Vedas, from those four sages, and from the Upanishads. Now let me come back towards conclusion. Natural law and Kartavya jurisprudence. Substance of Kartavya jurisprudence consists in the understanding of nature as found in Vedic and post-Vedic literature of ancient India, where one can find obligation-based legal system, which is advocated as the best suited for India in contrast to the received right-based system, which is found to be the root causes of all the ills we are suffering in the field of law and enforcement, and especially in the administration of justice. And Kartavya jurisprudence may not be understood as the classical natural law jurisprudence expounded by the West. Of course, the emphasis in both is based on the perception of nature and what is understood as natural both by observation and experience. West, nature means what they see by observation and experience. But what is the main difference with that of understanding of nature in the Kartavya jurisprudence would be the traditional wisdom. The source is the traditional wisdom, not Gyan. One step further, I call it Pragya, the wisdom. And that also is explained in the philosophy of Yajnavalkya in 3 parts, which I have already written in published. The Vedic and post-Vedic literature. In the West, now let me a glimpse of what is the natural law, which they understood in the West. There were a large number of jurists that expounded the parameters of this natural law jurisprudence, beginning from the Greek philosopher Aristotle. According to him, what the law commanded would be expected to vary from place to place, but what was by nature should be the same everywhere. A law of nature would therefore have a flavor more of a paradox than something that obviously existed. This is what Aristotle said. Now, the natural law jurisprudence is currently undergoing a period of reformation. So there are so many other natural law theorists. The best represented author has found is the most prominent contemporary natural law jurist, Australian John Finnis, based in Oxford. According to him, I am concluding with this only, I am not elaborating much further. According to him, natural law consists of 2 sets of principles. The first, consisting of certain basic values that are good for the human beings. One of the basic forms of good is knowledge itself, which is reached by experience and reflection. It involved recognition recognition of and concern about an order of things beyond each and every man. The second principle is consists on the basic requirement of practical reasonableness. These requirements are very similar to what we found, all the values which are advocated in the ancient jurisprudence. I don't know whether he has taken from that or not, but I'm not going in detail. Now, he further holds that right and obligation are also components of the common good, or they are limited by each other and other aspects of common good. For him, natural law exists as participation of eternal law. Now, by last few words, Kartvaya jurisprudence would further concentrate on research on the principles contained in Part 4 of the Constitution. You see, the Part 3 is on fundamental right, but Part 4 is the basic guiding, the primary goal for guiding of a welfare state, basic principle. But the courts, in its ingenious way, by interpreting this principle, have brought out some elements of obligation-based legal system. So therefore, the principle that can be adopted from Part 4 are the secure a social order, to secure a distributive justice, to ensure right to work, education and social security, to provide for just and human condition of work, to provide for free and compulsory education, promote the educational and economic interest of weaker section, improve the public health, to protect environment, full stop. And it also study on the fundamental duties contained in Part 4A, which I am describing below. Therefore, the principles contained in Part 4 and Part 4A can be the basis to revise our statutes, which are mostly and blindly following a system based on rights. And if you want to shift it, you will have to improve those statutes in the form of obligation-based. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your illuminating words. Thank you, sir, for sharing your understanding and reflections on Rita, natural law, and Kartavya jurisprudence, and giving us deep insights into moral foundations of duty and justice. Before we conclude this session, we welcome any questions from the people present. If anyone has any question, they may kindly unmute themselves or can share it in the chat box as well. Any question?
Chat box has no questions.
If nobody has any question, then we can conclude this session.
Sir, if
I'll ask one more time.
Yes, sir. I'm Gautam, sir. I'm a practicing advocate. You have already explained well, but I just wanted to just throw further clarity and maybe my doubts, sir. That how can we, in environmental prospect and spiritual, our religious prospect, that always the Kartavayam, as you already explained to various examples, how the nature and environment must be protected. So in that light, I will just give you any experience where you have come across through other example where in a given case, it can be used for protection of environment in all various forms. Through your examples and experience, sir. There are various examples where it is always that the like water, air, and everything must be protected. So in that context, if you feel like give few more examples, so that will be better for us to use that in quotes and otherwise. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for a very enlightening session.
Sir, if you the question is addressed to me, if you send me your email, I have a separate article on environmental law in relating to obligation-based system.
I will be.
You please forward it to Seema, madam.
I'm just giving it in the chat.
I will send you that article.
Yes. And also, sir, I will just seek your guidance in future also. How can we, through courts, bring more awareness? Because filing such petitions or other things where we can, as advocates, be more helpful with your guidance, seniors, to make it more public in addition to the articles through courts.
Then I'll send you more. There is one on child right.
Right.
Then the third is on the protective principles for the scheduled caste. And these are a third part of my one of the articles. So I will send you 3 articles.
Highly oblige you. Highly oblige, sir. Yeah. And sir, Amrapal, sir, we'll also seek your guidance through Vedas, how you beautifully explains through slokas from Gita and other places. We'll also seek your guidance. How can we put these jurisprudences in court or more material? Because at times in court, we'll seek your assistance and guidance as well. So I will be looking forward for it, sir.
Sure. My email is...
I will take it from Seema, ma'am.
Perfect.
I will get in touch.
Perfect.
Highly obliged, sir. Thank you for your time. There are a few other questions I can see in chat box.
Yes, sir. We have, I think we have 2 more questions in the chat box. One is, how can we incorporate Riti through Kartavyam in our daily life?
So this is Riti is different. Sir was talking about Rit. Rit is, which is a natural order, as Sir was trying to explain. So if Professor Varghese would like to respond to this, how Rit through Kartavyam in our daily life, this is something.
The daily life.
Yeah, this is.
I practice it in 2 ways. One is never do harm to anybody and help wherever I can. Because that is our duty. All the rest is all, big words. If you follow these 2 principles, never do any harm and help if you can with whatever knowledge you have. Which I practice. Otherwise, it is a big lecture how to do it.
Yeah, true. There is a small question I find, whether duties can conflict with personal happiness. In fact, personal happiness, I mean, conflict between duties and personal happiness. In fact, performance of duties are actually for the purpose of enhancing personal satisfaction.
Exactly.
It should never, naturally speaking, it should not conflict with the happiness. Sometimes it might happen that in the performance of duties, you undergo tremendous pain, but that is the part of the process. The end result is satisfaction and happiness. That is my understanding.
Sir, it will not happen. If you have full faith, then you walk before your self, the ultimate self. And whatever happens has to happen for your good, because he sees which is good for you.
True. I appreciate that
If
point.
something happened to the contrary, it is not because, I have to suffer. No. You have to take it that is good for you. Because someone else see from above which is good for you. So by doing your duty,
I appreciate that point, sir.
yes. By doing your duty, I don't think you will be in any problem. There will not be any personal conflict. Because resign yourself to the ultimate reality, which sees what is the best for you.
Appreciate that, sir.
Yes.
Chaitanya, now you can move on.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, both the sirs, both the speakers. I thank you all. As we conclude this enlightening session, I'd like to request our program director, Dr. Seema Singh, to deliver a vote of thanks for the session.
Thank you, Chaitanya. I hope I am visible to all of you and audible as well. So it was a great session, sir. It was a great learning from all the three learned speakers, and definitely we received few very good questions. And I think, sir, now it is time to think that Bharat, which is basically a Kartavya-based society, here itself the people have very little bit knowledge about the Kartavya jurisprudence. So I think whatever Professor A.P. Singh sir and Professor Jose Varghese has said, that how to understand the jurisprudence of Kartavya in context to Rita, Prakriti, and obviously the Bhagavad Gita. So these things are going to be very, very important, because one gap which because many academicians are present here and many intellectual minds are also present here. It is high time to evolve the jurisprudence of Kartavya, but before evolving, I think simultaneously we should also work on establishing the importance of Kartavya. What I understood from the lecture of Professor A.P. Singh sir, Jose Varghese sir, and what Shaila Dowre ma'am has said, that we are also the part of the universe. So whatever is aligned with the law of the universe, we should follow the same pattern. Unfortunately, we have created a disconnect between the cosmic law and the man-made law, and that's why our priorities has also been changed. So basically, the entire universe is duty-centric, which we can definitely find out from the this 1.5 hour long program. So being the part of the universe, it is also our responsibility to perform our duties, basically our kartavya, which has a much broader jurisprudence in comparison to the jurisprudence of duty. मैं तो अपने students को सर एक example भी देती हूँ कि each and every cell of our body is performing its duty. अगर एक सेल या एक बॉडी ऑर्गन भी अपनी ड्यूटी को परफॉर्म ना करे, then our own body is going to suffer a lot. So just imagine about a society where people are deviating for performing their duties, and they are becoming more and more right centric. So definitely, if a body cannot work, a society can also not work if the people are not inclined or aware about the performance of their kartavya and duties. So I think it was a very enlightening session for all of you. And I'm extremely thankful to all the participants and our esteemed guest. Professor Gunjan Gupta ma'am is here. I can also see Professor Binay Kapoor Mehra madam, and I can also see Ashok Mehta ji, and there are many other senior fellows. I'm extending my thanks to all of you on the behalf of the entire Kartavyam team. And we will continue this online series up to mid of the August, and after that we will shift to offline mode. So keep waiting. We are coming up with some more excellent sessions and speakers. And at the end of the entire series, I am very much hopeful that we will be able to develop Kartavya jurisprudence as a new discourse in the legal academia. So thank you to all of you once again, and goodbye to all of you. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for today's lecture. Hope to see you again in the sixth lecture of this series. Let us carry forward the knowledge gained today, striving towards a society where duties and rights harmoniously advance the nation's welfare. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your guidance.